Hello, plotters. Do you have a book or other IP that you're just dying to turn into a screenplay? Nandini Bapat, I'm going to say it differently every single time. Thank you for being so forgiving with that. I'm like, this is how you say it. And then my mouth did like a Tourette's thing where it was like, I
told
wanted
you.
to say Bapat.
Yeah, that's fine.
Shame. I need a shame bell behind me. So today we have Nandini that's going to be talking. I'm just going to say your first name. You're going to be like Madonna.
Oh, it's great. Nandini.
The Nandini is here to give us some tips on how to do IP properly, like acquiring IP. And I have a confession to you all plotters. I was actually catching up with Nandini on the phone, and she was talking about like her journey, which I'm not going to say too much. I'm not going to reveal everything, but I was like, this is so cool. I want this information for myself. So this episode's all about me. I just want to know this information for myself because I think it's so freaking cool. Nandini, thank you for being on the show a third time. I don't know what order the episodes are going to come out in, but like I've been really looking forward to hearing your information about this. What do you have to say today for this?
Okay, so first of all, I would want to say that I'm not an expert.
She's an expert. She's an expert.
I've done this through discovery.
Wait, let them be the judge. We're gonna let you, and then they can say if you're in the comments below. Say if you think she's an expert.
I just think I research a lot, and I like try to get as much information as I can before I do something. So
what does that mean, though? If you do the research and you have all the information before, what does that make you?
Oh, no, we're not doing that. Here's the thing. I just want to say that like I haven't sold anything yet, so let's just be clear on that. Like,
okay, that's fair. That's very fair.
A success plays. Like this is just me trying to figure it out as well. So
she's doing really. I don't know what I'm allowed to say, and I have a big mouth, but she's doing okay so far, right? You're doing all right.
Doing okay. I'm on the process, and it's going well.
You're on the process. So yeah, how did this start? Like, actually, I'm gonna. I want you to go a specific way from our other episode. So you were geeking out about this specific author, like as a child. Tell us about that.
So I fell in love with this author when I was a kid, and I was reading this. I stumbled on it in the sci-fi section of the library. I was just going by, and my hand caught on the book, and it had a really cool cover. And I looked at the back, and it was like this teenage girl, human girl, living in a city on a planet that was filled with elves and magic and stuff like that. And here's this super brainy scientist, smart girl who is a genius and saves this elf from like danger, and then he falls in love with her and she falls in love with him, and it's this whole romantic journey and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And so I pulled it up and I read it, and I was hooked from the first sentence because it was like, a bunch of wargs jump over the fence and run straight at her, and she's like, oh, and I'm like, oh, and that. But I think what got me or hooked me really well was like this girl. The author described her as a short, petite girl with brown skin, brown hair, brown eyes. And I was like, huh? Really?
Wait, because back up. What time period was this?
This was like 2007. Yeah. And so when I'm reading this in 2007, they didn't have any characters that had brown skin as main characters. No, we were always like the token best friend, or the story was about our culture. It was about tiger parents and breaking away from an arranged marriage, or whatever. And there was nothing about like a brown girl being a hero, or saving the world, or just having normal problems outside of being brown or Indian or whatever. There's no diversity thing. And here's the thing. At first, when I read it, I thought that this was a white girl that was tan. I'm going to be genuine. In 2007, when I read this, the author wrote brown skin, brown hair, brown eyes. And I immediately identified with her as a smart, short girl who thought she was bigger than she was and bit off more than she could chew and all of those things. Like I really related to the character. But I thought she was a white girl with a tan. I thought that's what the author was saying, because that's usually what authors write when they're like, oh, this is a diverse character.
Nandini.
I was so used to it. I was so used to characters being white that I didn't realize until it was a few years later. I think it was the sequel, where there's another character that shows up who looks very close and similar to this main character, and that character is South Asian. And it was, like, her family comes from, she's an elf, but she comes from the region of the world that is the Himalayas. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, totally blew my mind. I was so excited. I was like, wait, she's Indian. She's South Asian. She's me. What? Oh. And so then it was life-changing. It was like, and so 2007, I read the first book, and I wanted to read the sequel. And the sequel, so I guess it wasn't even that many years later. It was just, I couldn't get access to that book because it was hard to find. And Amazon wasn't really a thing then. I mean, it was just starting, but most of the time you still have to buy books in the stores. So I had to go to a store, order it, wait for it to arrive, and then I got to read it. And so I opened this book, I read it, and it takes me a minute, but I finally realized that this character that I have loved is South Asian. And I realized it's the first time I've read a South Asian character in a book written for an American audience in English by a white woman. And I was blown away. And I was like, I'm obsessed with this woman. I need to meet her. I need to talk to her and just take in more of this. I need more. And so that kind of kicked me off as a writer and started my journey.
Wait, so people have watched your prior videos, but if somebody's just tuning in, Nandini, how old were you?
I was, 2007, I must have been 17.
Okay, so Nandini was 17. She had dabbled in writing, but she ended up writing for a contest, not because she cared about the writing, but just because she wanted to see the author.
Yeah. This particular author, so she was pretty...
Are we allowed to say her name? Because it feels like...
Her name is Wen Spencer, or that's her pen name, Wen Spencer. W-E-N, and then Spencer, last name. Yeah. And in the book that I read was Tinker, from the Elf Home series. And I fell in love with it. I was obsessed with it. And I really wanted to meet Wen and just talk to her and ask her what made her come up with the idea of making a brown girl the lead. Like, I was just like, how could you look at this world and say, you want someone like me as the main character?
So reveal the sad plot twist of your 17-year-old life. Like, what happened to this contest?
So I wrote my first original story. It was about a boy who rode a dragon to pick up marbles. I think it was around the time that Aragon was out, so it kind of, dragons were in my brain. Yeah. And I didn't get in. I didn't get the contest, but I stuck with it because I was like, well, I kind of wrote it in a rush because it was a last minute submission. So let me try again for next year. Of course, next year she wasn't a mentor, but by then I'd been working on writing and I'd written some original stuff. And I was like, I kind of want to keep doing this. Submitted again, didn't get it. I kept trying and not succeeding at it, but that was the fun of it. It was just keep trying, right? I kept having new stories. Even when I say, oh, this doesn't work, this isn't successful, I just move on to a new idea. It was fine. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So I love the full circle of this. So this is me in my brain. And I would have a imposter syndrome, I guess. I don't know if that's what you would call it, but like, if I had like a writer that I loved who wasn't like famous, right? Famous, I would still be like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to communicate with this person. So when I just want to know, when did it hit you? Like, just tell me the equation that happened in your brain that made this happen.
Here's the thing. It's like, I think, so I didn't really start screenwriting fairly early. I mostly was novels and stuff like that, writing books and things and long form, literary stuff. And I was doing that, I think, for a good 5-6 years at least after starting that original stuff. And I resisted for quite a while writing screenwriting because, you know, I'd always seen actors, and it's like there was always the actor that then became a writer, then became a producer. And it's like the multi-hyphen. I was just like, ha, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be an actor, you know? And I wanted to be pure. But then, like,
be pure.
Yeah.
Wanted to be pure.
I wanted to be pure.
Ay.
But the thing is, like, I'm a brown woman. I'm a plus sized, short brown woman. And I was like, there are no roles for me. Like I could do co-star stuff. I could do very generic characters, you know, no name characters, or a name, but they don't talk much, or, you know, whatever. I could do those things, but no one would write a character that was a plus size short brown woman. You know, it wasn't there. The roles weren't there, and auditioning and trying and nothing was really panning out. And I was like, I have to write something that I could lead in, I could star in, and I know I can write, so why not just go do it? So I kept wishing and washing. I wrote a couple scenes, and then I'm a genre writer, so I'm very much into the superheroes, sci-fi, fantasy worlds, and there was I was really inspired by the DC universe, and so I wrote a spec for Shazam before the movie. By the way, it was the CW version of the Shazam story, set in that same Arrow universe, you know, CW universe. But it would be like a few years later, and it was kind of Arrow style, where you would jump in timelines and stuff like that. I was really into Shazam and Captain Marvel, one of my favorite DC characters, and so I wrote this script. And I polished it, and I thought it was really good. And I took it to a couple people, but no one could read it because it was Shazam, and that wasn't the property that I owned. I didn't have the IP for that. And that was the first time I'd encountered this IP problem.
It seems so scary.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. So no one could read it. It was a great spec, but no one could read it. So I was like, okay, I have to write something original that is my own, that I own, so nobody can take it away from me or say you can't read it. I ended up writing a plus size superhero character story called Hero. It was kind of set in a universe similar to The Boys, where it's not happy and roses. You know, the heroes are really bad guys. You know, there's this young, plucky, like, hacker, you know, plus size Indian woman who's in her 30s who develops superpowers and becomes a superhero eventually, you know, down the line. And it developed into a story about friendship, like between these two women who were best friends from college and really cared about each other. And both of them got superpowers, but one was abducted and the other one, the main character, my character, wasn't. And yeah, it's fun. It's really interesting. I really love that story. And I wrote a bunch of other things and blah, blah, blah. And I was having a great time. And then I got hired to work for this video game company, for writing superheroes. It was adapting a popular comic book series into a video game. And I was actually recommended by one of the people who actually did read that Shazam script, because he loved my stuff. He became a mentor for me, and then he recommended me for the job.
Which is an insane story. It's an insane story for another day. Like, this person is huge.
He's huge, and he's amazing. Huge. And I'm so grateful to him. He's opened so many doors for me. And he got me this job, and I was so excited to get my first writing job. I was being paid to be a writer, like, whoo! And I'm a very enthusiastic person, and I have a hard time holding that back. So things happened, and I guess I rubbed some people in the room the wrong way, and they complained to the showrunner incessantly for 3 months until the showrunner was like, bye, because I don't want to deal with that anymore. So long story short, that job was over after 3 months, and I was very heartbroken. Like, that was the biggest failure I'd ever had. I'd never been fired or let go from a job because I wasn't good enough. And
kudos to you for talking about this. It does not feel good. You're making me have triggers from having somebody sit me down as a server, like, and say you were not good. It does not feel good at all. So really brave that you're sharing this.
Thank you. And the thing is, none of the reasons I got fired were because I wasn't a good writer. Mm-hmm. It was because they were like, you can't work in a team, and which, by the way, is complete bullshit. I know I can work in a team, and I have eons of proof from it from my regular jobs that I've done. something about this particular situation did not work. And there are a lot of reasons I can go into, but we're not going to go into that. So
We're not.
yeah.
We're
But-
gonna. Nandini is going to succeed in this story. She's
So-
moving on.
The thing is, like, something really horrible happened, and it really shook my confidence. And I
Yeah.
honestly asked myself, are you going to do writing professionally in the screenwriting space anymore? Is television, film, and this whole like thing, is that entertainment side worth it? Do you want to just write for yourself? Keep doing fan fiction, keep doing writing for yourself. Maybe you'll write a novel one day, that's fine, you know. But do you want to still write stuff by committee, basically, which is what television and film really are? And I had to ask myself, do I really want to do this? And then I said, well, I don't want the one bad egg or one bad situation or terrible people who may or may not, I don't really know definitively, but may or may not have been judging me based on things that are not in my control. Do I want to let them be the ones to silence me? You know, do I want them to be the reason why I don't do this anymore? So I had to ask myself, I said, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to make this decision because it's the right one for me and not because somebody else pushed me to it. So I decided to have to write a script. Okay. Like just the one thing, if I could write one more project, one more thing, sell it and move on with my life. And if I want to say, this is the last thing I'm ever going to do, I have to pick something. And I wanted to write the screenplay of this story of Tinker, of Gwen Spencer's book, because
this was the one thing, if you had to stop, this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, because I mean, look, you know, I love original stuff and I have original ideas for days and I could keep going with them, but I didn't love them enough as I loved this story, because I thought this story was special. And, you know, let's be real, like right now, IP is everything. IP is king. And I was like, if I'm going to pick an IP project to tell a story of, you know, there are a lot of books from my childhood that I've read, and I have a Rolodex of books and stories that I would adapt and make into television and film stuff. Yeah, for days. But I was like, this project is special. This is one that I resonate with. This is one that I love. And if I was going to do one thing to see something on screen, this is what I would want to see. So I picked up the book and I started reading it again as a writer this time, as somebody who is dissecting it to turn it into something else. And I did an extensive outline. And the irony is that at the same time, I was like, I'm going to get out of the country. I went to go visit my parents in India. I took the book with me. I spent the time on the plane, like outlining. I spent the next 2 weeks that I was there outlining. I got COVID. So while I was, you know, isolated in COVID, I was outlining and working through this book and going page after page.
This sounds like Rocky, except you're a writer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did this extensive outline, timelining everything, putting all the events together, and I started kind of churning together some ideas, breaking the story, as we say in the Hollywood sphere, right? Figuring out how to tell it. And initially I wanted to do a feature because I didn't want to write by committee. You know, I was like, I don't know. I didn't have confidence in myself to work in a writer's room. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a film, because then I could just write it. I can sell it to somebody. They can deal with it at that point, and I don't have to, you know, collaborate, because I was really still gun shy of that. And when I started putting together the story and I talked to some friends, they were like, no, this is a television show, because you won't be able to write a film and get all of these bits and pieces. It's too detailed, and you wouldn't be able to tell the story well in a movie. If you did, it would be so sanitized and changed and different that it wouldn't even resemble the books. And I wanted to tell the story in the books, the story that I fell in love with as a kid.
So while you were going through this process, did you just start doing this and not have planned yet how you're going to get the IP?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's go there. So you wrote this thing, you're feeling good, you're like groovy TV series, and you're like, oh wait, I don't own the rights to this. Now
I don't own the rights to this. Here's the thing: is that, you know, you'll hear for eons like, don't write until you have the IP, which is true. It's a very valid thing, but really all it is they say that because if you don't get the IP, then you can't do anything with the script. So you've wasted time. Now, here's my counterpoint to that. If I'm not going to get sued, what's the harm? I've only wasted time. Okay.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. I wasn't
Wait,
going
hold on.
Yeah.
Because some people like this is like, they're like, but that's it. Time, like a wasted time and energy. However, I just want to mention this, just in case we didn't mention it in this episode. Nandini is big into writing fan fiction. So for her, it's like, what the heck? I don't care. I love doing fan fiction. Most people are not that way. So they're like, what is she talking about? That is what she's talking about.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I would say from a writer's, from a person, like from my perspective, okay. Yes, you're wasting time, but are you really? Because you're learning something in the process.